And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Space Gate Odyssey. Now this one from Ludonaut Games had me really excited because this cover is absolutely gorgeous. It's a really beautiful cover. Artwork done by Vincent Dutrait, who also does the planets that are in this game. Really neat. Not a ton of his artwork in the game. It almost is like, oh man, the box looks cooler than the game itself. But this is a game in which you are building a space station and manipulating colonists through that space station to send them down to planets to score points. You're scoring points by doing things. You're doing so by moving engineers around an action board. It's really a bunch of mechanisms thrown into a game that has a space theme but could have likely not had one. Although building the space station is pretty neat looking, but the theme is kind of thin at best. But that doesn't matter if the game is good. Let's find out. Over the course of the game, players have a bunch of pieces here. They have robots, they got settlers, these little dudes here, they got engineers, and then you can put a suit on a guy and make him a chief engineer. Each player is going to start with a starting room, like this here, and they're going to fill it with settlers. And then you're going to pick two modules from the top of module decks and start your space station. You can see they're connected here via doors like this. Players are going to start with engineers in each of these rooms here, and their chief engineer in that room. So there are 5 different rooms that players are going to be taking turns on their turn. They're going to pick one of the engineers that's in here, and they're going to pick them up and move them to another room. So I might pick them up and move them to this room, and then I'll get that action. I'll put them on the top here to show that I'm taking the action and I go down. Then maybe purple will move here and go up and take that action, but because I'm in that room, I'll get that action too. And then maybe the black player will pick us up and put them in this room, and then white, yellow get an action, and black will get this action twice. So there's different actions that can be taken here, and if you have engineers in a room, you get those actions. As the game goes by, you might get robots. Robots will be placed in a room, and then they will give you an action every time that room's action is taken. But they cannot ever be moved. Only engineers and chief engineers can be moved. A chief engineer gives you 2 actions when they move somewhere. So if the black player had moved here, they would get 1, 2, 3. Yellow and white would each get 1 action. So what are the different actions? Well, this room here, when you go there, you get new modules. For each action, you get a new module. There are 3 rows of modules here in the different colors, and you're going to be able to take these modules from the top of the pile and add them to your station somewhere. The modules are in 3 different colors, blue, pink, and green, but they also do various things based on which section you take them from, and they're going to have different numbers of connection points from them also. When you go to the green, pink, and blue modules, you're going to be able to move settlers in your station to those modules, with white being, every color. So let's say the black player, or let's say I was the white player, and I decide to move mine here. I'm going to get 3 actions moving to blue. So I can move 1, 2, 3 to blue. If I had been here, I could also move 1 to the white, because white counts as all the colors. Now, when you have a module, modules start deactivated. When you move someone into it, it's going to flip over to the activated side, but the first person to move in is also lost. I guess they give up their life to open up that room. Some rooms, well, all rooms have some sort of bonus. This one here, for example, gives me a robot in the orange section. So I would take a robot and put it here. That's that room. That's essentially all that room does for me. Other rooms are going to turn into different things, and as you open them up, you can then move more people to them, trying to get folks into these rooms. Taking actions in this spot will fill up your airlock rooms. So for each action, you can take 1 airlock room, and they have this airlock symbol on them, and your starting room is an airlock, and you just fill it to maximum capacity. So this one has 5, I had 2 on it, so I'd add 3 more to it. And if I had another action, I can fill this one to maximum capacity, because I'm trying to get these people to go to these rooms. These are the rooms that are going to send people down to planets, and that's how you win the game. In each game, you're going to use 5 planets out of a random group of planets, and then you'll make sure that they're on the side that equals the number of players in the game. 3 of these planets are going to be active at the beginning of the game. You're going to put these symbols on them. When you have one of these rooms completely filled up, all those people are going to go down to the planet that has that symbol on it. And then you're going to follow the rules for putting your folks on that planet. And as you put people on planets, and when the planet's full, it's going to be scoring points for the players. So for example, this one here gives 2 points per players, but sometimes when you go to different spots, they will give you other benefits. And here you're filling them up in the rows, and as each row gets higher, it's 1 point, but whoever has the most in a row will score 3 victory points. And so each of the different planets is going to have various ways of putting different people on. Like for example here, if I put folks on these spots, then I can eventually get more points for having the more out on each of the different colors that are out there. So you're trying to go to the right planets to score the right amount of points. Point scoring is going to be done here as players move these around this track, and every time they go around a track completely, they're going to put a marker here to show that they've gone around. So this is essentially 24. But when you reach 30 and 60 points, you actually have to pull one of your engineers off of the player board and put it here instead, which means as you get more points, you're going to run out of engineers, and you'll have to find tiles and activate those to get more engineers out there that you'll be able to use. At the end of the game, players are going to get bonus points. And by the way, the game ends when you fill up a planet, you open up one of the 2 remaining planets, and when all 5 planets are filled up, the game ends. Whoever has the most activated tiles of each of these types is going to get the points above it. So here, the most green will get an extra point, the most pinks will get an extra 4 points, and whoever has the most sets will get 7 points. But every time you put one of your people on one of these spaces here, you're going to be able to switch 2 of these. Maybe I'll switch this and make it so that no one gets 7 points eventually by moving things up. Those points will be added to points that you've scored by placing on the planets for whatever, however the points are given out for those planets. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most is the winner. Artwork and components for these boards are fantastic. I really like how everything looks. You'll have to look them up to remember how it does, but once you do, you'll say, oh, okay, that's how these symbols work. I get 1 point for each here, and then if I get a group of 5 that are connected, I get an extra 7 points or whatever it is. You'll figure it out pretty quickly. Now these 2 pieces here are the big ones, right? Fitting these back in the box. Now these come out pretty easily if you want to just take them out and stick them back in. That's not too hard. This, you're not going to want to take apart. And so you need to put them in there. I actually rubber band the tiles to keep them in each of the sections. But that does take up, as you can see, when you put this in the box, it does take up a good chunk of the box as you're putting things in. The actual clear pieces and such, I like these. They look neat. But this is one of those cases where as much as I like translucent plastic, maybe it would have been a little better to not be translucent. In fact, my favorite color in this one is white because they're not completely translucent. I think they look better than the other pieces in this particular instance. The suits are neat, but I almost wish the suits were a different color, slightly different color, because then it would look cooler when the things inside them. That's a neater looking suit than yellow on yellow. I'm being a little nitpicky there. Other than that, remembering what all the symbols mean is not that hard. This goes to that planet, this goes to that planet, this gives you a worker, that's an airlock. That's pretty much all you need to remember, so it works pretty well. The scoring track is kind of a pain because who cares about this? I understand you're trying to get workers, but I would have just preferred a track that was 60 spaces, and when you got to space 30 and 60, you said, okay, this moving around here, it's a little bit more tricky to work with, and it doesn't really do anything for the game. There's a lot I like about this game, but I want to start by talking about a few things I was not a huge fan of. Having the most points in the different sections and manipulating that track is such a non-issue. Like getting 2 points for having the most blue tiles, who cares? You're getting so many points from other things in the game that I found that to be kind of a letdown at the end. It's like, oh, I guess maybe if we were tied, these matter. And over the course of the game, you go to those spots to switch that track. And even that's kind of like, well, who cares? I'm going to make pink worth more, but it's in the beginning of the game, so I don't even know who's going to get the most pink tiles. The actual moving the engineers around, I love that. That's a really cool mechanism. Spread your engineers out, so no matter who picks an action, you get it. But then your actions are only ever going to be one action each. While if I move my chief engineer to a spot, I'm going to get more actions. And then, do I want to take a bunch of tiles that give me more robots and more engineers that I can move around and do things with? But in doing so, I'm actually not winning the game. I get my actions better, but I'm not getting more airlocks to drop people in and throw them down to the planet. Building your space station, where you put your airlocks really matters. You need to put your airlocks next to places where you can send them out to these planets as quickly as you can. And you want to do that. You just, having a room that only needs 2 to be filled and you can shoot those down to the planet is probably better than filling a room with 4. It takes longer. But at the same time, the 4-1 you can slowly fill up, and then when you send down, it's like vroom, you control the planet a little bit better. The planets are all fairly similar. Get points by connecting these, or once you have guys here, you can put a spot here, and that guy's worth 3 points, and then putting one in the middle is 5. There's nothing really groundbreaking about the scoring on the planets. And there's nothing really groundbreaking about the building of the space station itself. It looks neat. To me, it's all about moving those engineers around. That's the one part of this game I like. Now, I don't love this game. I think the game is fine. I think that it's a really pretty game, and there's a lot of neat ideas in it. But ultimately, it doesn't really stand out in a huge amount from other games. It's different, but it's basically kind of using a bunch of mechanisms. And while they flow together okay, it essentially comes down to I need to build a space station such a way where I'm dropping guys in, moving them to a room, and then throwing them down on the planet. And you're trying to do that a little bit faster than everybody else, which is cool, and it works. It also scales nicely between 2 to 4 players. It's just at the end of the day, the planets are all kind of variations on the same theme, and the layout of the space station is more about economy than building a cool space station. So I keep coming back to those engineers. That is a neat mechanism. It's kind of like a rondelle to some degree, but you can go anywhere on it. And I think that holds the game up. I think the components for this game, that 3-tiered board and the spot where the engineer stands above everything else, that's almost a little like, look what we've done. And it doesn't really matter in the long run. And again, the space theme on top of that. And this game actually feels like a slightly smaller game in this big box. But at the end of the day, I had fun playing it, and I'd play it again. I think there's a lot of cool aspects to the game. I think there's some tough decisions to be made about when you build a module, or you build one with only one exit. You don't want to accidentally close your space station down. I wish the area control was a little stronger, and I wish the planets were slightly, I don't know, they just feel like a new variation scoring. Maybe special powers or something might have brought this up to an excellent. As it is, though, I had a lot of fun playing Space Gate Odyssey. Dice Tower Judgment approved.